So, well, friends, as teachers, we are teaching theory subjects in classrooms and conducting practicals in the laboratory and workshops. Now, during delivering instruction in the classroom and conducting practicals, we come across variety of questions for which we need answers or solutions. Questions pertaining to how realistic are my teaching plans for the particular group of students, because in a classroom variety of students with different background, in different individual differences, they are present. Some students are slow learner, some students are fast learners, some students learn best when something is told to them, some students learn best when something is shown to them. So as a teacher, my query is whether my teaching plan is realistic for the particular group of students, or how I can group my students for more effective learning, because sometimes we give small project work, and we are you see worried about how the groups can be formed, and then to what extent my students are ready for the next learning experience. That is, whether our students are ready to receive new instruction, whether I need to assess their prerequisites, to what extent are students attaining the minimum essentials of the course. This is a question that comes to our mind. To what extent are students progressing beyond the minimum essentials? Another query is, at what point would a review be most beneficial? What type of learning difficulties my students are encountering, they are facing, and which students are underachievers, which students have poor self understanding, which students should be referred to counseling, special classes, or remedial programs, why my students are not motivated, why they are not taking interest in the classroom, why they are not giving their attention, and to what extent my teaching was effective. So, for all these queries or questions, I need correct information, and the correct information can be provided if I conduct student evaluation. So this session is about, student evaluation, and you know that examinations are very much stressful for everyone. You see, if parents and students focus on the writing part, teachers are responsible for setting the right and good quality of question paper. Now, number of elements. Now, number of elements come into play at this stage. So, setting a question paper is a very strenuous, and I would say time consuming task for the teachers. Teachers have to be thorough. They have to ensure that the question paper aligns with the purpose or the reason for testing the students. Now, the question is, what makes a good question paper, or how to set or create a question paper that helps assess the knowledge, the skills, and the attitudes of the student, because we want to develop all round personality of the students. So this is possible if we develop adequate knowledge, skill, and attitude. Now, all the three components are essential for the all round development of personality, and it means as a teacher, we need to measure all the three domains of student performance, that is, knowledge, skills, and attitude. Now, let us have a look at, first of all, uh, the attributes of good question paper. Firstly, The clarity. Clarity means, are the questions readable? Are the questions written in the language of the students? Sometimes we ask questions like elucidate, enumerate. Now the student has not heard about these words. So, uh, as a teacher, before the semester is over, please try to discuss the previous year's question paper with the students and try to make them familiar with the appropriate wording. But as a paper setter, you need to write question in the language of the students. And then secondly, understandability. How easy or difficult are the questions to understand? So the question need to be written in a very specific manner. There should not be any ambiguity. The scope of the topic to be discussed must be indicated in the statement of the question. For example, if I ask you to answer a question, what are Newton's laws of motion? Now, one student may try to give the statement of all the three laws, because the question is, what are Newton's laws of motion? Another student would try to explain each of the three laws with one example. Another student would try to give two examples. Definitely, once the answer sheet comes to the teacher, and he will give full marks who to the student who has answered the question with two examples. Now, there is no scope. In the examination hall, every student knows many things. But when it comes to delimiting the scope of the answer to be discussed, every student applies his or her own mind. So the better question is, describe each of three Newton's laws of motion with one example. Now the nature of response and the scope of the response is clearly indicated in the statement of the question. Then comes the coverage of the content. It means all the topics covered in the syllabi of a subject must find place in the question paper. There can be internal choice, but there should not be external choice. Now, coming to the relevance, the question might have been taken from the syllabi, but is it relevant in the overall context of the question paper? Does it test the students' all level of cognitive ability? So, a good question paper must test all levels of cognitive abilities. Remembering information at the lowest level means factual information, because every discipline consists of factual information, concepts, principles, problem solvings, and all these can be compared with the Bloom's knowledge, that is cognitive domain: remembering, understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, creating. Remembering means factual information, understanding means concept, now applying means principles. The higher mental ability, that is analyzing, evaluating, and creating, involves problem solving. So, as I said, each subject discipline consists of factual information, like say, water boils at 100 degrees centigrade. The symbol of sodium is Na. SI unit of force is Newton. Or when I say, name one sulfide ore of copper, define force. All these are to be rote memorized. No understanding is involved. Then comes concepts. Now, you see, what is a concept? It is something which has a referent, which can be shown, which can be pointed out. So, concept learning is evident when a student is explained in his or her own words, give examples, interpret, or extrapolate, etc. Then comes the principle. Now, what is a principle? So, principle is nothing but something which involves a combination of more than one concepts in a fixed relationship, isn't it? For example, F is equal to M into A. Now, what is F? Force is a concept, equality is a concept, mass is a concept, multiplication is a concept, acceleration is a concept. So principle is one which involves a combination of more than one concepts in a fixed relationship. It is a rule or principle. So this kind of learning is evident when a student is able to apply these principles or rules in a particular situation, maybe in daily life or maybe in a word of work. Then comes problem solving, which involves ability to solve, ability to analyze, evaluate, and create. So, evaluation is valid when we are able to include items which measure all ability levels. Then comes uh, whether the question conveys the intention of the paper setter. Now, I have given you one example. What are Newton's laws of motion? Now, in this case, the intention of the paper setter is not conveyed to the student. What he expects from the students, whether he expects the students to write the three statements and explain each of the three statements with one example or two examples, it's not clear. So it means appropriate verbs or words need to be used by the paper setter. Okay. So your intentions must be clear to the students. Then there is a need to include variety of test item. I'll give you the classification. Uh, the types of question can be broken down into two categories depending upon how you expect your student to respond to those questions. Your students could either supply an answer to a question by a word, by a number, by few sentences, more sentences, that is short type question or fill in the blanks question, or you can say the essay type of question, or your students could either select an appropriate response out of different responses supplied along with the question, say multiple choice question, matching type question, alternate type response question, because each type of question has its own advantages and disadvantages. So it will be wrong to include only one type of question to measure students varied learning outcomes. And a good question paper must cater to individual differences, that is the difficulty level. Good evaluation generates maximum individual differences. Then in regard to validity and reliability, to what extent the results are valid and reliable. So for this we need to understand the concept of measurement, testing, scoring, assessment, and evaluation. So, as a teacher, we need to know the specific difference between all these four, five terms. Firstly, it is the measurement. So, measurement means the quantitative assessment of a student's performance. Measurement means obtaining a numerical description of the degree to which an individual possesses a particular attribute or characteristics. That is, it is concerned with how much. If I say a student got 45 out of 50 correct mathematical problem, now this is concerned with how much, but this doesn't indicate the worth. This doesn't include the qualitative aspect, whether his work was neat, organized, or structured. So measurement indicate how much a student has learned, and when it comes to evaluation, we want to know what subsequent instruction as a teacher I need to emphasize. So measurement. Then comes the test. Test is nothing but an instrument, a tool, question paper for measuring a sample of behavior. It is used to measure the performance. It can be developed by the teacher himself, or it can be developed by professional developers. Say many standardized instruments are available which have been developed by a pool of experts and published by professional developers. For example, attitude scale, interest inventory, aptitude test, and so on, learning style, etc. Then comes scoring. Scoring is a procedure of assigning a numerical value to assessment task. Then assessment. Assessment is the process of measuring something with the purpose of assigning a numerical value. Assessment basically focuses on measuring learning progress and achievement. On the other hand, evaluation focuses on making judgments and decisions based on collected data. See the difference. Assessment focuses on measuring learning progress and achievement. Evaluation focuses on making judgment, making decision based upon the collected data. Assessment is basically or primarily formative in nature. It is continuous throughout a lecture and providing ongoing feedback. Evaluation is primarily summative, end term and semester, providing an overall judgment. Assessment is individual focused. It involves the use of test quizzes, whereas the evaluation is system focused. So it is either quantitative or qualitative appraisal of performance, and it includes value judgment. That is, not only it is concerned with how much, it is also concerned with how well. It is the process of determining the worth of something in relation to established benchmarks using assessment information. Say my benchmark is that he should be able to define force 100% correctly as per my instruction. So I'll ask question define force. I will not ask question what is force, what do you know about force, what do you mean by force, because what do you mean by force, what do you know about force, what is force, these are measuring something different. Our benchmark is that he should be able to define force. So there should be a one-to-one correspondence between the statement of the learning outcome, that is benchmark, and the statement of the question. So that will ensure content validity, because validity means appropriateness of result. We say a test is valid if it measures what it is supposed to measure, means what is the learning outcome and what is the statement. So corresponding statement should be there. So it is the process of providing information for decision making. Okay. Then it is the systematic process of determining the extent to which learning outcomes
आमच्या
are
सांगतो इव्होल्युशन
achieved by students. Systematic process. Why
मॅथ्सला
systematic
काही
process?
प्रॉब्लेम येत नाही इव्होल्युशन साठी.
So it means as a teacher, you need
आपल्याला
to
माहिती कसं इव्होल्युशन
formulate learning outcome first.
करायचं.
So you have formulated learning outcome. Then you will think about the prerequisites required. You will develop the question paper for measuring that learning outcome. You will provide learning experiences. Then you will measure the performance. So it's a systematic process, beginning with writing the learning outcomes first. So evaluation answers the question how well and how much, both. Okay, so evaluation can be made on an individual student, it can be made on the entire class, it can be made for a complete program, it can be carried out at a at an institution level, at the state level, and so on. Now, the basic purposes of evaluation is to obtain information or to provide information to the extent to which a student has achieved mastery over a set of learning tasks which are included in a course. That is why you need to map course outcomes with learning outcomes and the corresponding questions. Provide information regarding the comparative achievement of students in relation to learning outcomes. Whether the student has answered the questions as per the learning outcome. So firstly, the question should be as per the learning outcome. For example, learning outcome is that he should be able to define force. Then question should be define force and not to be written in some other language. So question must begin with the action verb: define, explain, describe. I'll give you the verbs which can be used to measure student performance at various levels. So you can compare the performance of one student against the stated learning outcome. Then it gives information to the teacher to what extent his method of teaching was effective or adequate. Okay, because at the end of the class, you are giving some questions to the students, and answer to the question give an idea to the teacher whether his message or content has been well understood by the students or not. Teacher can make instructional decisions, that is because the evaluation provides data indicating how much a student has learned and what subsequent instruction should emphasize. Do he need to present the lecture again? That's that feedback he gets, whether he has to present the content again with some using different method, how he can group students, how he can diagnose learning difficulties, and he can refer the students for counseling and guidance, etc. It also provides information to the student regarding the nature and level of his performance. Even the result is given to the parents. They want to know to what extent their children have attained the mastery over the set of learning outcomes. And the same information can be used by the administration for making you see for providing in service training to the teacher. Maybe the results are not up to the mark, so there is a need to provide training to the teacher, or because the results are not good because the facilities are not adequate, the equipments or the consumables are not available in the laboratory, and so on. Okay, now coming to the types of evaluation, that is at what stage evaluation has to be carried out. So evaluation, as I told you in the morning also, it has to be conducted before coming to the new topic, because as a teacher you want to ensure that the students possess prerequisites or not, whether the students are ready to receive new instruction or not. So that is called as placement evaluation. Does the student possess the knowledge skill needed to begin the planned instruction? I have given you example in the morning about inertia. So because for delivering instruction on inertia, the teacher assumes that the students are already familiar with the concept of rest, motion, and force. So placement evaluation is regarding the extent to which the student has already mastered the objectives. To what extent do the students' interest, work habits, personality characteristics are different for different modes of instruction? That is, before the start of the semester, you can you can administer some standardized tools which are available online. One such tool is on learning style. This is available online. You ask your students to answer 44 statements, and immediately they will come to know the right learning style. So as a teacher, you need to provide instruction suiting to the different learning styles of the learners. So this is the beginning. So aptitude test, pre-test, learning style test, personality characteristic test. So these tests are available which can be used for knowing whether the students are ready, whether the student possess a particular learning style or personality characteristics, and accordingly you can provide the instruction. Then comes the formative evaluation. Formative evaluation, this type of evaluation you see measures the student learning progress during instruction. For example, in a classroom, say you have broken down the topic into say 3 to 4 subunits. After giving information and input on first unit, you can ask 1 or 2 questions. After delivering second input, you can ask 1 or 2 questions. So you are getting feedback, okay, whether the students are taking interest, whether the students are receiving the information, they are able to understand, or you need to make some change in your subsequent presentation, okay. Or at the semester level, you can have 2 3 sessional tests. You can also provide them assignments, quizzes. So this is formative evaluation. So formative evaluation means the evaluation of a student's learning during a course when changes can be made in the transactions of subsequent instruction on the basis of current attainment. And for this, you can develop mastery test for each chapter, laboratory or workshop or field work. You can also prepare a Google form questionnaire you can provide to the student. Then comes the third type of evaluation, that is called as summative evaluation, that is end topic test or end semester examination. Okay, that is when it comes to lesson level, we say before leaving the classroom, we ask few questions pertaining to the entire chapter. It can be orally, or you can provide them and a Google form questionnaire. Or summative evaluation is that end semester examination. Okay, so uh, it is used at the end of a term, course, program for the purpose of grading, certification, evaluation of progress or researchers on the, and this type of information can be used for making improvement in the curriculum, okay, course of study or making plan. So both criterion reference testing and norm reference testing can be used for assessing the achievement and grading. Now, criterion reference testing is when you are comparing the performance of one student against the learning outcome. Norm reference testing is when you are comparing the performance of one student against the other student, maybe in the same class, in a same college, or different college, but under the umbrella of same technical university or technical board. That is norm reference testing. So there is one more type of testing which is usually ignored by many of us, and that is called as diagnostic evaluation. That is diagnosing persistent, or you can say recurring learning difficulties that are left unresolved during lecture by the standard corrective procedure of formative evaluation. So purpose is to formulate a plan for remedial action. So for this, you can go for specially diagnostic test, or you can also use the observational techniques. I'll come at a later stage what are the various types of observational techniques. Now coming to the process of evaluation. Okay, so as I told you that it is a systematic procedure. Firstly, write down the learning outcomes of a particular topic. Then prepare a pre-assessment, that is in order to ensure whether they possess prerequisites or not. Then design or develop appropriate learning experiences to be given to the student. Devise a suitable assessment procedure. Administer the tool, you will get the result, and you can make decision based upon the results. So it's a systematic process. Let me explain the evaluation process as a cyclical process. There are four phases in evaluation. First is the preparation phase, second is the assessment phase, then evaluation phase, and the reflection phase. And the evaluation process, this whole process, involves the teacher as a decision maker throughout all the four phases. Now, preparation phase, here the decisions are made about identification of what to evaluate, knowledge, skill and attitude, क्योंकि तीनों के लिए अलग अलग टूल हैं. And then whether it is to be carried out at the initial stage or during the course or at the end, or to diagnose their learning difficulties. Identification of criteria against which student learning outcome will be judged, whether you want your students to perform 80% correctly, 90% correctly, or say 70% correctly, because you know the level of your students in the class. You cannot expect all the students to perform at 100% correctly. And the most important assessment strategy, which is the most important assessment strategy for collecting the information on student performance. So preparation phase involves the selection of or identification of what to evaluate, at what type, at what stage, the criteria, and the which is the right assessment strategy. Then you see a decision made during this phase form the basis for planning during the remaining three phases. Now, the second phase is the assessment phase, and at this stage, the teacher identifies information collecting strategy. He can construct the tool or the questionnaire or the select the instrument. He will administer the instrument to the student and collect the information on student learning progress. Then the third phase is evaluation phase. Now, during this phase, the information the teacher has collected during the previous phase, that is the assessment phase, will be used to make judgments, decisions about student progress. So, based upon the judgment, decisions are made about student learning programs, and these are reported to the students, their parents, and the administrative institutional personnels. The fourth phase is the reflection phase, which allows the teacher to focus on the effectiveness or successes and the shortfalls of the previous three phases, and specifically evaluate the utility, the appropriateness of the assessment strategies used, and he can make decisions concerning improvements or modifications to subsequent instruction, subsequent assessment, and so on. So, whether it is placement evaluation, whether it is formative evaluation, summative evaluation, or diagnostic evaluation, all these processes involve all these four phases. Now, coming to the basic principles of evaluation, as a teacher, you must also know. Firstly, what is the purpose of evaluation? That must be clear to the teacher before preparing a question paper. Here, he has to clarify, he has to clearly specify, I would say, because effectiveness of evaluation depends upon knowing this. And after that, you can select the evaluation technique. Then comes what to evaluate: cognitive domain, affective domain, psychomotor domain, or the sources of learning outcomes, levels of learning outcome, teaching learning strategy, instruction media, what to evaluate. Then strategies or models of evaluation. Is one particular technique the most effective method for measuring learning? You have to see, you have to ensure. Then comes the comprehensive evaluation, requires a variety of evaluation techniques. As I told you that there are various type techniques of assessment, and each technique of assessment has its own advantages and disadvantages. So no single type of instrument can assess the varied learning abilities and the learning outcomes. For example, objective type test. They are useful for measuring knowledge, understanding, application outcomes. Essay type test can be used to measure the student's ability to organize and express idea. That is, you can measure up to creating level. There are observational techniques which can be used to assess students' behavior during skill, okay, during a performance in the skill. There are self-report inventories, like you want to study your own learning style, you want to study your own interest, your attitude. There are questionnaires, standardized tools available. You can administer yourself. So self-report inventories. So a complete picture of student achievement or performance requires combining the results of different techniques of assessment. Then, proper use of evaluation techniques requires an awareness of their limitations, because you see, evaluation tools, they are standardized tools. There are teacher made tests. There are observational टूल्स और सेल्फ रिपोर्ट टूल, जहाँ पर स्टूडेंट जो है वो फेक डाटा भी दे देता है. सो different techniques of assessment yield results that are subject to various types of measurement error. It could be sampling error. For example, achievement test may not adequately sample a particular domain of content. आपने learning outcome तो लिख दिया, but you have not written the appropriate or corresponding question. Chance factor. You have given external choice. Okay. There are multiple choice questions. Students are permitted to use their guessworks. And in case of essay type question, when there is no clarity, there are chances of subjective marking, and inconsistent responding to self-report tools or inventories. Hmm? So because of this, you need to know the limitations of different types. Then feedback you have to give immediately. If you are asking question in the classroom orally, give feedback quickly. If you are giving them assignments, please provide conscientious remarks, that is how they can improve, what are the gaps, like that you have to give immediately. And there should be a continuity in the evaluation process. So you need to include the performance of students in the class quizzes, sessional tests, assignments, and you can go for this kind of internal assessment. Now, coming to two methods of interpreting results, I was mentioning about the criterion reference testing and norm reference testing. So, criterion reference testing, the purpose is to compare the performance of one student against the stated learning outcomes. That is, the learning outcome is defined force, question is defined force. Now, you will see his answer. If it is 100% correctly, you will give him marks. So whether he has attained the mastery over that particular learning outcome or not, you are not comparing his performance with the performance of another student. You are simply comparing the performance of one student against the stated learning outcome, and you also fix a criteria whether he is to answer 100% correctly or 90% correctly. So you have to fix the criteria. So based on a predetermined set of criteria, for example, you can give 90% and up to A grade, 80% to 89.99, B, C, D, and uh, below 59.99, it is F. Now there are two types of you see views about criterion reference testing, because some say that this set minimum performance expectation and demonstrate what students can and cannot do in relation to important content. But some says that it is hard to know just where to set boundary condition, that is 90%, 80%, 100%, and the lack of comparative data with other student or other institution, there is no. Then comes the second one, is the norm reference testing, when we are comparing the performance of one student against the performance of another student, maybe in the same college or in the other college, but under the umbrella of same technical university, that is question paper is same, eh? And under the same umbrella of the technical board. So describe student performance in terms of relative position held in some known group. Okay, so student performance is assessed relative to the other student. So you can go for this normal poverty curve, that you will give you will give A grade to top 10% students, where Z is more than uh, plus 1.28, B next 20%, C next 40%, D next 20%, and F is bottom 10%. Now again, there are pros and cons. That is, it ensures a spread between top and bottom, shows student performance relative to group. Now, top and bottom performance can sometimes be very close, and it dispenses with absolute criteria. And being above average doesn't necessarily mean that he will get A performance definitely. Now, the characteristics of a good evaluation tool, I have discussed about other characteristics, but the main two characteristics are, one is the validity. Okay, I said validity means appropriateness of the interpretations made from the test scores with regard to a particular use. For example, if a test is to be used to describe student achievement, we should like it to be able to interpret the scores as a relevant and representative sample of the achievement domain to be measured. For example, say You have engineering chemistry in first semester and in second semester. Now you have prepared a question paper of say engineering chemistry first semester. You cannot administer to the second semester. It will not provide valid result and vice versa. It is limited to a specific use. So if the results are to be used as a measure of student understanding of first semester chemistry concept, we should like our interpretation to be based on evidence that these scores actually reflect understanding chemistry concepts and are not distorted by irrelevant factors. So validity is the extent, and particularly we will talk about the content validity. So content validity means that there should be a one-to-one relationship between the statement of the learning outcome and the statement of the question. I told you, I have given already one example. Say learning outcome is that after the topic is over, my student will be able to describe each of three Newton's laws of motion with one example. Learning outcome is after the topic is over, my student will be able to define or describe each of three Newton's laws of motion with one example. Then, to obtain valid results, our question should be describe each of three Newton's laws of motion with one example, and not question like what are Newton's laws of motion, because this question will provide different responses, and this such type of question will not provide the appropriate results. So there are number of factors which need to be considered in order to, you see, enhance the validity. If you don't keep these factors in mind, then these factors will definitely influence the validity. So firstly, when there is ambiguity in statement. For example, we say discuss semiconductors. Now, in this kind of question, the student doesn't know where to begin, what to put, what to include, and where to end. And even if I ask you this question, definitely I'll get different responses from all the students because there is a lot of ambiguity. If the instructions are not clear, I say explain the concept of inertia with examples. Now, with example means more than one, but some student they give 4 examples, some student give 3 example. It has to be clearly written that explain the concept of inertia with 2 examples. Now, suppose you have asked one question, explain the working principle of carburetor of an IC engine. Now, one student has explained the working with the one sketch, another student has not drawn any sketch. Now, the student who has explained the working with a sketch will get complete marks, other student will get less marks. Now, the student comes to you, sir, you have not asked for any sketch. Teacher say, it is implied that you have to explain with a sketch. No, no, no. You have to write. You have to give clear instruction. You can say, explain with a neat sketch the working of carburetor of a 4-stroke IC engine or 2-stroke IC engine, right? So the directions are not clear, statements are ambiguous, then it will definitely influence the validity of your results. Poorly prepared item or poorly arranged test item. For example, say in a question paper, the first question is very tough. Now the student reads the first question, he goes blank. Second question, difficult. So please arrange क्वेश्चन फ्रॉम सिंपल टू डिफिकल्ट. पहला क्वेश्चन पढ़ेगा, ही फील्स हैप्पी, ओके आई कैन डू इट, आई कैन. सो उसका मोरल बूस्ट होता जाता है. एंड देन particularly in case of multiple choice questions or alternate response question, please arrange the questions uh, in a random manner. ऐसा नहीं है कि पहले क्वेश्चन का आंसर ए है, दूसरे का बी है, तीसरे का सी है, चौथे का डी है, पांचवें का फिर ए है, फिर बी है, फिर सी है. तो स्टूडेंट वुड स्टार्ट अडॉप्टिंग ए डेफिनेट पैटर्न. So you have to arrange randomly. And then untaught items question is there. Vocabulary is difficult. Enumerate, elucidate, compare, or say evaluate, and so on. And cheating by some of the participants in a particular paper, so that also influence the validity. Then comes the reliability part. That is, the reliability refers to consistency of results from one measurement to another measurement. That is, if one answer sheet is marked by one teacher and more than one teacher, yeah, that is, if answer sheet is marked by more than one teacher, then the answer sheet must carry almost same marks. There should not be you see different marks. एक आधे नंबर का डिफरेंस हो सकता है, बट द डिफरेंस शुड नॉट इन एनी केस बी significant. So it is a measure of consistency of scores obtained by the same person either when re-examined with the same test on different occasion or when examined with the same test by different examiner. समझ गए? एक आंसर शीट को 3 टीचर ने evaluate किया और एक क्वेश्चन पेपर को मैंने अभी अटेम्प्ट किया और दोपहर को फिर अटेम्प्ट किया, तो मेरे अपने रिस्पॉन्स में वेरिएशन नहीं होनी चाहिए, जो कि ऐसे टाइप क्वेश्चन में होती है. मल्टीपल चॉइस क्वेश्चन आर हाईली रिलायबल, उनमें नहीं होती. सो नाउ सपोज यू हैव गिवन a test to your student. Now the question is, how similar would the student scores have been had he tested them yesterday, tomorrow, or next week? How would the scores have varied had he selected a different sample of two question papers? Suppose you have developed two equivalent question paper based upon same table of specification. And if it were an essay question, how much would the scores have differed had a different teacher scored it? So these are the types of questions with which reliability is concerned. Unless the measurement can be shown to be reasonably consistent, or you can say generalizable, over different occasion, different sample of performance domain, we can have little confidence in the results. Now, on the other hand, we cannot expect our results to be perfectly consistent. Why? Because there are some factors other than the quality being measured that may influence the test scores. For example, if a single test is administered to the same group twice in close succession, for example, अभी सुबह 9 बजे दिया, फिर उसके बाद 2 बजे दिया, then some variation in scores can be expected because of temporary fluctuation in memory, attention, effort, fatigue, guessing. And if the time difference is more in between the two administration, that is with a longer time period between the administration of test, there are some other factors that may be caused by, say, you have learned something, there is a change in your health, you have forgotten something, so or less comparable testing you see conditions. So if we use a different sample of items in the second test, वो भी प्रॉब्लम आएगी. हो सकता है पहला टेस्ट जो है वो इजी हो, सेकंड टेस्ट डिफिकल्ट हो. So it is likely to influence the result. That is, individuals may find one test easier than the other. So because it happens to contain more items on topics with which they are already familiar. इसलिए उसकी हमें जो है वो नॉर्मलाइजेशन जो करनी पड़ती है. So more the consistent results are, lesser would be measurement error and greater would be the reliability. So you can measure reliability, you see, by test retest method. For example, you have given test now, you are giving the same test next day, you have got two sets of score, and you can compute coefficient of correlation between two sets of score and find out the relationship. Or you can conduct uh, a test once and say the question paper contains 10 questions, all are compulsory. Now you can divide the divide the questions into two groups, first to 5 and 6 to 10, and find out the coefficient of correlation between the first 5 question marks and second 5 question marks. Okay, so that is called a split half method. So that will give you the internal consistency. Now again, we have to consider some of the factors which need to kept in mind while preparing a question paper, so that we get adequate reliability, good reliability. First is the length of the test. Now in general, I would say longer the test, higher would be its reliability. Means a test must contain about 20 to 30 questions and not attempt any 5 out of 10 questions, क्योंकि इसमें guess work involved है. So this is because a longer test will provide a more adequate sample of behavior being measured, and the scores are apt to be less distorted by chance factor, say guessing. उदाहरण
Sir,
देता हूँ. For example,
sir, actually, such type of evaluations only can adopt it for the cognitive ability, no? Yeah.
yes, I'm
Yes.
talking about cognitive ability. Yes, you're right.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
For example, uh, you want to measure student spelling ability, and if we ask student to spell one word, now there will be either perfect spellers or there will be complete failures. And if the word is difficult, most students would fail to uh, you see answer. And if the word is easy, most students appear to be perfect. So the fact that one word provides an unreliable estimate of student spelling ability is very much obvious. So you need to say, आपका पैटर्न है 8 क्वेश्चन देने हैं, बट 8 क्वेश्चन के आप पार्ट्स बना सकते हो, ए बी सी ए बी सी ए बी सी, और यू कैन गिव इंटरनल चॉइस, डोंट गिव एक्सटर्नल चॉइस. एक्सटर्नल चॉइस में गेस फैक्टर है. देखिए, लर्निंग एबिलिटी यू कैन कंपेयर ओनली इफ ऑल द स्टूडेंट्स अटेम्प्ट सेम सेट ऑफ क्वेश्चन पेपर. अब देखिए, फॉर एग्जांपल क्वेश्चन पेपर है, अटेम्प्ट एनी 5 आउट ऑफ 8 क्वेश्चन. एक बच्चे ने फर्स्ट 5 क्वेश्चन अटेम्प्ट किए, सेकंड बच्चे ने लास्ट 5 क्वेश्चन अटेम्प्ट किए, थर्ड बच्चे ने कोई और 5 का कॉम्बिनेशन बनाया. कैन यू कंपेयर द लर्निंग एबिलिटीज ऑफ ऑल द स्टूडेंट्स? नो, you cannot compare. You can compare only once all the students attempt all the questions. So length of the test is one factor you need to consider in order to enhance the reliability of your result. Second is the uh, the difficulty of the test. Okay, A question paper that contains too easy or too difficult questions would produce scores of low reliability, because such test results in a restricted spread of scores. Restricted spread of, for example, all courses are easy. Students' marks would be like 90, 89, 88, 87, 86, and so on. And what is reliability? Consistency. If the student who is getting 90 marks by one teacher may or may not get 90 marks by the second teacher, he may or may not retain the same position. He may his position may be changed. Okay. Likewise, if the marks are if the questions are very difficult, students mark would be like 54, 53, 52. So you need to follow a normal curve. You can say 15% of the questions should be of very difficult in nature, 15% questions should be of very easy in nature, then rest of the 70% questions should pertain to average difficulty level. Then student mark would be like 90, 87, 84, and so on. So difficulty of the test, and then the objectivity of scoring. So there should not be any ambiguity in this statement. You give the scope. If you are asking him to describe applications of lubricants, now this is vague. Which specific type of lubricant and how many, whether 4, 5, 6, because you have said describe applications. So this is not you see if you are asking him to compare the properties of covalent and electrovalent compounds, how many? Okay, so that you have to give the number, and then ease of admission, time, these are the other. Now coming to the techniques of assessment. Now there are variety of techniques. Firstly, we'll talk about the written test, closed book. Under this we will have essay type question, which are open ended question, uh, open ended question. So these measure the student's ability to say uh, student ability to analyze, synthesize, and evaluate student performance. For example, say the question is write a scientific evaluation of the Copernican theory of the solar system, very elaborative, or explain how poverty can be removed in India, or we say describe the applications of the law of supply and demand in the real world. Now here you are giving too much freedom, because here the student is free to select the information that he think is pertinent. The student is given freedom to organize the answer in accordance with his own judgment, and he is free to integrate and evaluate the idea as they deem appropriate. So you have given lot of freedom. So this freedom of course enables him to demonstrate his ability to select, organize. But on the other hand, the same freedom makes this kind of question inefficient for measuring more specific learning outcomes. And this will also introduce scoring difficulties that severely restrict its use as a measuring instrument. So instead of giving a highly open-ended question in a semester examination, you can provide such question in the form of assignment to the students. Now coming to the essay type restricted response essay question. For example, I say describe two situations that demonstrate the application of the law of conservation of energy. Describe two situations, or describe with a neat sketch the working of the carburetor of two-stroke IC engine. Or when I say state three main differences between covalent and electrovalent compounds. Now, these are essay type question, but these are restricted response essay question. So the restricted response essay question usually limits both the content and the form of the student response. The content is usually restricted by the scope of the topic to be discussed, and limitation on the form of response are generally indicated in the statement of the question. Explain the classification of lubricants based upon some criteria with examples. You have given the criteria. This is restricted response essay question. So these encourage good study habit, easily constructed. Scoring is relatively more objective because you are indicating the scope of the topic to be discussed, and you are giving guidance to the student to write the kind of answer you expect. So in this type of question, the intention of the paper setters are clearly conveyed to the student. The disadvantage is that time consuming because you are asking more questions. Now, short answer type. Short answer type question. Uh, for example, I say, what is the relationship between molecular weight and vapor density? Name one sulfide ore of copper. 8 is what percentage of 64? State Newton's third law of motion. So these are short time questions, and you can measure, you can give more coverage to the content, and scoring is highly objective. Such type of questions are easily constructed. Now, the disadvantage is that you cannot measure higher mental abilities through such type of question. That is the ability to apply, ability to analyze, ability to evaluate, and so on. Okay, so only lower cognitive abilities can be measured with the help of such type of test. Now coming to objective type test under closed book question paper. First is true false. So you are giving one sentence or statement where the student has to see whether the sentence or the statement is true or false. So content coverage is more easily constructed, scoring is objective. Disadvantage is that they may involve guessing. Sometimes the wrong answers can have undesirable effects on the mind of the student, and students may adopt definite response pattern. If these statements, say there are 10 statements, first is true, second is false, third is true, fourth is false, like that. So you have to arrange these statements in a random manner. Then comes the matching type item. Here the students are required to match the items given in column 1 with their responses given in column 2. So in order to minimize the guessing, you can increase the number of responses in the second column. फॉर एग्जाम्पल से अगर दोनों में बराबर बराबर है तो बच्चे को 3 आते हैं और चौथा वो उसको गेस वर्क लगा लेता है, तो बेटर है कि भी उसमें ज़्यादा रिस्पॉन्सेज दें. सो इसमें जो है प्रॉब्लम ये है कि भी इट हैज़ गॉट लिमिटेड एप्लीकेबिलिटी. ओनली यू कैन measure the situation which involve association of two things. Construction easy, scoring is objective, guessing is you can reduce. Then you have multiple choice type item where one stem is given, that is question is given, and it has got 4 multiple answers. One is correct key, three are distractors, and you have to you see follow the guidelines of writing good quality multiple choice item, because it is not easily constructed. Sometimes you have got 2 answers, then you say third answer is neither 1 nor 2, and fourth answer is both A and B, like that. So please prepare multiple choice question in such a manner that it must contain four answers. There should not be option like all of these, none of these. You can measure varied learning abilities. You can go up to creation stage. Tak. Now then we have got open book examination. So these can test students' higher mental abilities. These can develop good study habits, and through this we can reduce the worry and tension about remembering the formulas, because students are free to carry. So an open book examination is that in which students are allowed to refer to either class notes, summaries, textbooks. Even in हमारे यहाँ पंजाब इंजीनियरिंग कॉलेज, they have introduced and they have asked the student to bring two A4 size paper. You can write anything on these papers. Okay. लेकिन क्वेश्चन बनाना बहुत मुश्किल है. क्वेश्चन ऐसा नहीं है कि भी इमीडिएटली एक बुक में से उसको मिल जाएगा. द स्टूडेंट हु हैज studied the subject thoroughly will be able to answer the question. So teachers can devise questions that require students to answer in more analytical and critical ways. So by this we can encourage high order thinking skills in students as compared to closed book or you see traditional question paper. So open book examination work only when answers cannot be readily extracted from the book or the material. इसमें जो क्वेश्चन बनेगा वो मोर देन टू प्रिंसिपल्स को या मोर देन टू एप्लीकेशंस लगा के वो बनेगा, और एज सच एक ही बुक में से फटाफट नहीं मिल जाएगा, सामने से नहीं मिल जाएगा. सो द प्रॉब्लम इज विद द डिफिकल्टी in its construction, and it is you can firstly initially conduct to final year students, and involve some time also. Then we have skill test or performance test, okay, to evaluate how quickly a student can learn a new skill. A laboratory project workshop practice. Oral questioning is there. You can carry out oral questioning while delivering a lecture, or you are when the students are conducting practical, you can ask questions orally. And advantages, it has got advantages and disadvantages. Then there are a number of observation technique by which you can observe the behavior of your students. So you can prepare the rating scale, or you can say you can prepare the checklist. So checklist means say a student is performing the experiment and you have prepared a checklist whether he has done this thing, that is you are marking tick only. So basically a list of items required or points to think or the things needed to be done. Easily constructed, simple scoring, used for diagnostic purpose. But this kind of observant technique does not discriminate among students, because this indicates only the presence or absence of some behavior, doesn't discriminate. Now for this for overcoming this difficulty, we can go for rating scales, which is a closed-ended question used to represent respondent feedback in a comparative form for specific, you see, particular feature or product or services. For example, graphic rating scale. एक statement है, there can be 10 statements. For example, after my lecture is over, I asked you your expression. You express the level of satisfaction after attending to my lecture. Highly dissatisfied, dissatisfied, neutral, satisfied, highly satisfied. So 1 mark for highly dissatisfied, 5 mark for highly satisfied. So you can give the rating. So that will give the difference. So रेटिंग स्केल न्यूमेरिकल रेटिंग स्केल हो सकता है. ओके, you can these provide finer discrimination, you can identify strengths and weaknesses, but the chances of ambiguity in defining a trait हो सकता है. और कई बार हेलो इफेक्ट है. फॉर एग्जांपल मैं अपने क्लास को ऑब्जर्व कर रहा हूँ और 2-3 स्टूडेंट मेरे फेवरेट हैं या मेरे कुलीग के हैं. अगर तो मेरा कुलीग मेरे साथ अच्छा नहीं है तो मैं उसको नंबर उसका उसका काट लूंगा. तो इसके लिए आउटसाइड रेटर होना चाहिए. Then there are self-report inventories like say attitude scale है, personality test है, learning style test है, that you can administer yourself, and this will provide lot of information in affective domain. Easily administered है, किया जा सकता है. But the problem is fake data. For example, एक tool है to measure the anxiety of an individual. उसमें एक sentence है, मैं पहाड़ पर चढ़ने से डरता हूँ. Now I am giving in a group. तो जो बच्चा डरता भी है ना वो भी लिखेगा मैं नहीं डरता. तो यू मे गेट सम टाइम फेक डाटा. तो ग्रुप में ना देके थोड़ा सा डिस्टेंस में बिठा के उनसे वो, और एंड देन यू कैन इंटरव्यू 10% ऑफ द डाटा टू वैलिडेट द डाटा. 10% ऑफ द रिस्पोंडेंट्स को आप इंटरव्यू करिए ताकि वैलिडेट हो सके डाटा. सो एप्टीट्यूड टेस्ट है, न्यूमेरिकल रीजनिंग, वर्बल रीजनिंग, डायग्रामेटिक रीजनिंग, ये सारे टूल्स हैं. देन लाइकवाइज वी हैव पर्सनालिटी क्वेश्चनियर, लीडरशिप टेस्ट, मोटिवेशन टेस्ट, सिचुएशनल जजमेंट टेस्ट एटसेट्रा. देन वी हैव गॉट सोशियोमेट्रिक टेक्निक. सो फॉर एग्जांपल आप जब प्लेग्राउंड में जाते थे तो जो फिजिकल एजुकेशन टीचर था he might have asked you a question, whom do you want to be your team leader? Or in a playground the teacher might have asked, whom do you want to make friendship? So the choice of students indicates what types of relation they have with others. So through this technique the teacher can measure the acceptance or rejection frequently between the members of the group. It is, you see, commonly observed that some students always like to stay together. Some students are more liked by all students. Some students are not liked by anyone, and so on. So these social relationships existing among them influence various aspects of their development. So for this, sociometric technique can be used. And how it can be used? For example, if the group is large, you can divide the group into smaller subgroup consisting of 10 members each. The members of the group may be numbered from 1 to 10, and you can ask each member to write the name or the number of a student with whom you want to work or to play or to sit. Now you see this data. Student number 9 is liked by say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 students. Now student number 1 is not in the group, he is isolate, so he is not liked, and number 9 comes out to be a leader. Okay, so you can make small groups with the help of sociometric technique. So classroom adjustment अच्छा होता है, but sometimes the student may hide their real choices. So at this stage I close this particular session and open this session for any question or discussion. You are free. So as a teacher you need to use variety of techniques for measuring students varied learning abilities, and please follow the guidelines of writing good quality question paper. You may attend some course on specifically on evaluation and setting question paper.